Just setting up. Testing video. Oh wow, my chair is creaky, huh? Do a little bit higher music. And then just seeing if that's not competing with my voice too much. Okay, I think that's okay. Right around there, and I'm just kind of letting myself know how loud I have to talk. Can you tell that I'm on a delay and that's why I'm speaking in such a stagnated way? Alright, that should be good. You'll have to kind of bear with the chair. It's just gonna creak. But since I'm doing art, I wanted to sit at an actual table with a chair that has back support so that I don't mess up my back. Maybe a little quieter, because I will forget to speak up. There we go. All right. So, hi everyone. At a slightly different surface than you've seen so far. This is one of my working desks that I have in my apartment. And yeah, today I'm gonna start a new painting that I've had in mind for a couple of months now. I really just wanted to get going on it. First and foremost though, I kind of want to work on some thumbnails and some creature designs. I'm not gonna go too in-depth because I really want to improv with painting the creatures on the actual canvas, but I just kind of wanted to try out a few different things with my preferred sketching tool of this really cheap Bic marker or Bic pen. I don't know why this is my favorite sketching tool, but it is. But for just thumbnailing, I'm gonna try to just use a pencil, just so that's a little less intimidating / permanent. But especially when I'm making creatures, I really, really love using pen. I don't know why, it's just easier to build up that way. I'm definitely out of practice because it's been a while since I've made a painting. I'm trying to remember the last last one that I did, and I really can't, so I think it's been at least a year. And I've painted some like small projects and things, but yeah, I haven't done like a full-on painting in a while. So I got on clearance from a cool employee-owned art store over in Brooklyn. This really cool canvas. It is very large. It's not too big, but it is this very long rectangle. I'll try to pass it in front of the camera in a way you can see it. When I start painting on it, and not just underpainting, where I can move that around some, I'll make sure to have the camera in a way where you can see all of it, but for now, you don't need to see all of it. There's nothing going on there. But yeah, I had an idea for a while. So Worthy Kid's song The Wire is one of my go-to. I'm really stressed and I just need something to block out my senses for a bit and be very cathartic to listen to. The Wire is one of my favorite songs to just loop when I kind of need a reset on sensory input from the world. And one of the things that I like doing when I listen to these songs is kind of map out what I think a cool music video would be for them. So it's like a meditative process I have, especially when I'm really stressed or feeling very close to kind of sensory meltdown. It helps me to just kind of recenter myself, collect myself, and kind of get in a place where I can cope until I can get home. Yeah, so I do that for a couple of different songs. Now, this being said, I know The Wire already has an amazing music video, and it was actually made to accompany an animation by Worthy Kids. So it doesn't need a new music video, but I like imagining my own. And even though the one by Worthy Kids is amazing, it's perfect. If you haven't seen The Wire video or listened to the song, I highly recommend it. It's gorgeous. It's so cool. Worthy Kids has the most amazing animation style, and I just love it so much. But this very much kind of made me think of creatures, and for some reason I got in my head the concept of, and like on days when I would listen to it, I would kind of keep building up the music video in my head more and more of just this world that is surrounded with lots of different very chaotic looking creatures, and especially a little deer-like creature that I kept kind of imagining, with ears that kind of look like little hands. Let's see if I can get just like kind of a loose sketch of that guy going. The main character, I guess you could say, of this video would be this little creature guy, this little deer with these little hand ears, and he's just doing his very best to escape and survive in this chaotic world. And the song is very short, so it'd be a very short look at this little guy. I'll probably get some references of deers out in a bit to do some more kind of sketches that are more deer-like, but kind of the idea is, actually I'm gonna get a deer out. Just get a better look. Deer. So I'm trying to remember the shape of their head specifically. Yeah, there we go. Okay. I had some of it. I just kind of have. And especially for kind of recognizing what the snout is. Just kind of. And having it be in this very, very rough and sketchy style. Like in my mind, when I'm plotting out the music video, like it's one of those styles that like the lines are constantly moving. You know, like home movies, that cartoon, kind of like that, except a little bit more tight and chaotic. And the biggest thing about these creatures, imagining them, is the eyes. I really want the eyes to be this really cool, big shape with huge, kind of phalange eyelashes for all of the creatures, but definitely for the deer. Sometimes when I'm rough sketching stuff, it's more almost like notes for myself rather than like what it's going to for sure look like. So hopefully this makes some visual sense, but it is just kind of a little sketch. But yeah, he's doing his thing. He's got little teeny antlers. Nothing really helpful, they're just there. Just look cool. Isn't that the way? Kind of debating still if I want them to be uneven or if I want them to be even. I think having them even might be cool. More than anything, I usually imagine this guy like. It feels weird to do a head-on shot because I usually imagine this guy from the side, especially for the eyes, just being these large, terrified, but like very colorful eyes that I really want to paint. And even add some effects too. Doing some gel acrylic or nail polish acrylic, or even maybe some craft glue to kind of like add a 3D effect to them. But yeah, just kind of more than anything, just really love the eyes of these creatures. So the creature that's escaping in this will be this little deer guy. Just a little guy. It's going to be a very, very little guy compared to the other creatures that he's running from. And in my mind, he falls down this giant kind of basin that's filled with trees. So it's almost like going through a giant foresty canopy. And he's dropping down through the basin, and it has this like very conical, kind of natural conical like spiraling down into it out of the rocks, so that there's all these giant creatures that he's running from just kind of there, and one huge one that's at the bottom, and he's bouncing around from like surface to surface and falling because he got surprised by this sudden basin, and then he gets to the bottom and has like an accidental fight by just flopping on top of the face of this big giant creature that wants to eat him, and just smacks that creature and starts to escape up by like jumping up on the heads of other creatures as it's coming up. That's a lot, but I'm not putting all of that into one painting, but that scene specifically of him escaping this like very deadly basin of teeth and chaotic looking monsters is really what I wanted to super capture in this painting. So at the bottom there will be some form of big nasty monster. Oh no. Yarr. And then the creature, little deer, getting away. Whoa, there you go. Ah, screaming. I very much always imagine him like mouth open, eyes wide and terrified, and just screaming. So I would be too. Just kind of loosely sketching a deer, right? And they have the rest of themselves kind of like down here. I know it's a fantasy deer, but I don't know. I think it's always nice to base even fantasy creatures on real creatures to an extent. To make it like somewhat more believable, even when it's like completely something that doesn't exist. Just because it gives kind of like a foundation, you know? A little bit of a foundation for your creature to exist, and like an actual skeleton for it to have. So you know how it moves, and you know how it bends and stuff like that. It just, I think, adds a confidence to your creature. It lets you really, really mess around with it, and when you're deciding like, well, I want it to look warped and twisted, or, you know, like warped and twisted, like I want this guy to be like escaping and like his body to be super bending and stuff like that. It's going to be much more believable if I have some idea of what his bones are doing, so that I can actually make it seem like, oh, you know, he's doing a thing that I can recognize is this motion or this emotion. So yeah, like when he's escaping up, he's going to be definitely in some form of kind of like free-falling looking thing. He just leapt up. I really want to draw his tail. I like deer tails, they're cute. They're just little tufts. This doesn't help me at all, but I just like drawing deer tails. They're cute. I think they add a nice little flick to drawings too. Like they add a nice little flick to the movement of a deer. But yeah, deer is going to be escaping away, and there's going to be lots of other little creatures around the bacon-ass teeth. And I'd like to emphasize that feeling of them kind of being all around in a spiral. So like this basin kind of goes down like this, right? And all of these creatures are around the sides of it, you know? And then the big nasty guy is like down here. Okay. So what I'm trying to figure out with these thumbnails is specifically like, okay, do I want, like, how high do I want the deer? How many of these background creatures do I want? How many does, like, or like also like where do I want them to be to kind of emphasize this feeling of like spiraling down without losing that or making it too static? You know, like I don't want to have the creatures feel like they're just lined up in rows, because I feel like that would be really, really static. So I'm also just figuring out my lines of action too, right? So like I want the deer to be going up, and I want these creatures to be giving an effect of spiraling down, so I kind of need them to be going this way. And going downwards, and this deer is going to be going contrapposto. Do I remember that from art school correctly? Contrapposto to that. And then the same thing with this monster down here. Like I know I want him at the bottom, right? But if I just stick him at the bottom, it's gonna read like, oh, there's a big monster at the bottom that this deer is escaping from. But is that visually interesting? Is the thing that I kind of want to figure out. Like, is there a way to make it really interesting? Is it having him from the side? Is it having him, you know, like at a 3/4 view? Maybe you see like one big eye and you see like a ton of his jaws maybe going into like his mouth a little bit too, and bending the perspective a bit to where like, okay, you have this head-on perspective and then you have this perspective that's kind of going down into the mouth of the monster. Like, that's kind of where I'm thinking that might work out well. But I really want to challenge myself with the angle and get an angle that feels like he's erupting up, because I can do a 3/4 angle, right? Like this guy here that I started sketching. I could do this, and then you have that feeling of it being at the bottom still, but it doesn't feel like he's lurching up into the piece, and it doesn't feel like, you know, he's an active threat. And I kind of want him to feel like he's lurching up and about to bite this little deer again. Like, I want there to be a tension of, you don't know if this deer is going to make it or not. Also, I know that I have the deer kind of like bouncing off of heads and things like that in my mind, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to work the best without being too visually distracting or like reading too much into one image, you know? Like, I could draw a little monster that maybe here he looks like, oh no, I just got bonked by this deer. Like, I could do that, right? But I don't know if that's going to add to the picture or if that's going to just be too much information to read when you're looking at the painting and just be confusing as to the actual moment of action that's happening, right? So I went to art school many years ago for illustration, and while I'm very rusty and my skills are not where they were back in my early 20s, these are still the things that I think about when I'm trying to like draft a composition for a painting. I hope any of that is interesting to you. It's definitely a challenge for me to talk about it as opposed to just like doing it. But yeah, like, I want to figure out what angle do I want my monster to be at, to where he does seem like a threat, and that he does have like this big thing of action going on and is bending down the perspective so that maybe it's a little easier to show on here. Oh, actually, let's look at my watercolor box, because this watercolor box is actually the same proportions pretty much. So, like, the monster is going to be down here, right? And your perspective is going to be front on. But then I really want that perspective to get, like, bent and crumpled into the monster's mouth. Makes sense? Cool. Awesome. So yeah, thinking about, like, how he's going to fall, what that mouth is going to look like. I'm thinking probably some variant of that 3/4 view might be best. And like, I might have him go up higher than I originally was planning. Like, I was planning to have him pretty low down, but starting to sketch this out, I'm seeing there's a lot of space for this deer and for the background, and I feel like it's going to be too much space to try to fill with a compelling background to this illustration, and like a background that makes sense for this moment of story that I'm trying to tell. So I'm thinking probably the lower third, and then that can let me have some fun with the creature design, right? So like, I could do wild things with like his arms. You know, maybe this is a world that has like creatures that are just have lots and lots of hands everywhere. or just like hand-like appendages, because I kind of like the idea of just him having all these little hands that are reaching up. So maybe we have him reaching up with his big hands. We'll have the eyeball more inside. Just makes it look like he's angry. I was trying to draw an arrow. We'll have an eyeball that's a little bit more to the inside. See, like if I was building... Hold on. I'm getting distracted, but bear with me. See, like if I was drawing this eye with pen, I feel like I'm much more just confident with doing that, like this. And getting those weird little shapes that I keep imagining in my little mind palace, imagining creative things to make the world less stressful. That's what art is for, right? And just having this very thick eye coming out from these phalanges, these little tiny things. So like the lid is really thick and the flesh is thick there. Right, and then like has this giant deer eye. Deer eyes are just these big giant orbs, but then has like, in my mind, like tons of different little like colors and stuff in it. It's this very, very shiny eye, and then like the actual pupil of the eye is just a terrified dot. I almost feel like I put the working title as Creature Escapes because like this deer is gonna look like he's in so much peril, and I just want everyone to know that he's okay. It's gonna be okay. But yeah, kind of having, and I want the eye to be big enough to where it's fun to draw too. Like I know I'm gonna have eyes for the monster as well, and have them be like these big, I don't know what to call it. Like there's an eye that I think of with specifically like eldritch creatures in particular, where maybe give them some like frog affects to the eye. But like there's this kind of eye that looks like just like big and wild and lidless, that I think adds like a frenzied kind of look to a creature that I really like a lot. I really love playing with. Debating putting like multiple eyes in there too, inside of like whatever socket I end up drawing for this guy, just to kind of really make it seem like unworldly, unearthly. Yeah, kind of playing around with that. Hopefully the ink makes it a little easier to see. I think this one just looks like a big blob. Let's raise it up for a little bit. And I turned the autofocus off because my camera is really annoying with it, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing there. So I'm thinking maybe that I started kind of drawing like what this deer would look like running away from it. I accidentally drew it like right where the mouth would be anyways. So yeah, I wanted it to look like it was falling, but it just did like a big kick. I don't know if you've seen deers when they've like decided to like turn directions in midair, they kind of like warp their bodies in a way, and it looks like they just kind of like they it looks like somebody took them and just like twisted them into an angle, and it's kind of terrifying. but at the same time, it's really cool. And just kind of giving that deer that look. And so I'll probably look up some deers jumping a little while just to really get that body shape down. But see, I don't want his arms to block, and this is what thumbnailing helps you figure out. Like, it helps you figure out, like, what are the things that you want to do, what are the things you want to paint, before you actually get into it. And, like, I don't want his arms to block his eye or his face, because I really want to be able to do, like, a terrified face, right? Like, I really want to do, like, a super terrified, like, no face, and have that from the side, like, no, jeez, shit. Sorry. And I think I can do that while also making the body look more warped. If maybe I put the arms kind of going like this, the front arms. I could also make up some very different legs for this creature. I was kind of tempted to have him have, like, little hands for hooves a few times. I might still do it, but I might just do it as, like, less obvious and just kind of like little feetsies like that. Almost like kind of an elongated pig trotter. So I might do that, and then that way I can have the deer's face be somewhere here, right? Get rid of some of that pencil. I sketch so messy. This is one thing I was worried about with, like, showing my sketching process, because I sketch so messy. I know what I'm looking at and trying to accomplish, but I don't think it's super readable. Okay, something like that. And then we have one part of him going this way, like this, and then we have the other part twisted and going this way. So I might do more of a kick out with the leg kind of going like this and like this. And then that way too, like, it's less of the leg going straight into the mouth. Right? And then we'll trying to think of how to have it be apparent that he bounced away. And you know what? I'm thinking that by doing that, we either flip this guy around or we flip this guy around. I'll tell you why. So, if we have this big eye here as like a big focal point, I'm thinking the eye could have some damage to it, right? That shows, like, that this guy, like, did a kick and is getting away that way. And instead of, like, doing the, he's bouncing up the heads of the different creatures, we just show in that one thing there, he's starting to get away, and he's doing it by doing these big heckin' jumps on these guys. And so thinking of a way to show the eyeball, the creature, but have the creature need to be facing away from the eyeball, right? Because if he's jumping away from it, or if, like, that's where he's jumped from, that's where we need to have him jumping away from, so that our action is like that. This can be a lot of bending perspective stuff, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to pull off, but I want this to be a challenge for myself, so I'm going to try. So, right, like, we either have the eye here and him going like this, or if we have him facing this way, then we have the big eye over here for him to be jumping off of. But then that way there's room to have the big eye, have the action make sense, have this guy still be kind of like in the middle, because I really want him to be like the central piece of it, because I'm gonna do what I want to do too with it is that when I start painting it in more and start laying in the colors, is that I want a little bit of a glow effect around the deer. Not because the deer is glowing, but just kind of having the light be manipulated in a way to where it kind of looks like there's a natural bit of like brightness around the deer without it being the deer actually glowing. Because he's going to be the focal point. And so deer is going up. I'll have, whichever way the deer is going, I'll have the spirals going counter to him. It's like if the deer is going this way, then I'll have the spirals going down this way. Because if they go down this way, it's going to read too much into it, and then I think it's going to give him too much flight visually. So I'll have these spirals going down, whichever, like, counter to whichever direction the deer is going. So that we end up with like a bit of a cross visually. And then the frog will be our grounding element. I keep calling him a frog. He wasn't a frog in my mind until I started drawing his eyes. I guess he is just kind of like a big monster frog. And then, so we'll have our big monster, we'll have the deer coming away, we'll have the monster take up the lower third, the deer kind of like in that middle third section there, and then we'll have the beasts kind of crowding up everything. I'm debating if I want there to be any sky. I don't think I do. I think I really want the deer to be like very much in this basin with these monsters. So I think all the way up to getting cut off, there's going to be other monsters of various sizes, but all much smaller than the one in the forefront there. And definitely too, because I'm a sucker for some viscera. Like if I have the eye be injured, or no, an ouchie, have some viscera coming up from the eye and in a path that's kind of following like a spray of water from the deer's back hooves. So I might have those be actual hooves, so he has more of a chance. And then I think too, what I'm going to do with the deer is have his spine at a very unnatural and very uncomfortable like V. So do you see how like this deer is like this right here and his legs are spraying out? Like kind of exaggerate that more. And have the head like coming up kind of closer to the viewer slash the camera, you know, whatever you want to think of that. So like this part of him is kind of coming up towards the camera, this part of him is going away, so it's more towards the back, and this part is like in the middle here. And then that way this can align with the monster. Like think of it like layers, right? Like this is kind of like on the same layer as the monster. And this guy will be kind of more to the front and coming up towards the front so that he can still be a little guy. Because I don't want him to be bigger than these creatures. in the background. I want those creatures to be menacing and much bigger than him, or at least like perspective wise look like they're much bigger than the deer, because I want the deer to be just a little guy. Just a little guy that can make it despite being a little guy. He's gonna survive. They're gonna fight you. And have my little deer like twisting up and away, and very much like with this perspective of like, yeah, oh my god. You see my little guy? Ah! But yeah, have that be the look there. Have his little like arms going up. Deers have very long necks. I'll make this guy have a ridiculously long neck to accommodate the arms and the spine twisting like crazy. And that'll be cool. And then I can still draw a little deer tail. Success! I can still have a little deer tail. I can have my cake and eat it too. So that'll be great. I really love his little hand ears. And I just kind of want to like figure out. Yeah, I don't want them completely lined, but I do love his little hand ears so much. I definitely want them to be very wrinkly. Just wrinkly, lots of folds. I think he's cute, but like I have a weird concept of what's cute or not with creature designs. Because I think this big nasty guy is cute too. But yeah, I think this is more or less the plan. So just to sketch it out correctly, right? So we'll have kind of like the idea of the eye being over here. So the eye, teeth, and a 3/4 down view. Just gonna be kind of hellish to get the mouth looking like it's 3/4 and down to make it look like you're falling into a gaping maw. Lots of little armies. Right, and then the big eye that's gonna be injured. So he'll have a big eye. And I like the crazed eye thing still. So do that big eye, but it's gonna have like a big old injury in it. And then the spray, right? And our little deer. Getting out of here. Ah. And then if he's going this way, then I want my spiraling down stuff to go this way. And this will be the caverns where the creatures are. And I could also play with it going like this to kind of add to that slightly top-down effect. And then maybe have more of the creatures kind of like reaching out and being like on alert. And then I can kind of show off more of their bodies a little bit and show that like these are the ledges, but then kind of have this like nothingness that they fade into, right? It's gonna be very Boschian. Whatever. And you have some of the guys like snapping up. And then maybe if I feel fancy, I can have like one guy coming in there and being kind of like a medium-sized guy to show that all these guys are definitely larger than the deer. The deer is just a little guy. Here we go. Not that. Or have him over here. wherever it ends up. When I start sketching on the canvas, I'll see where it kind of feels like I need a little bit more weight, and I'll anchor it with a little guy on the side. And then still though, I want to make sure that I'm getting the deer kind of in the middle. So that's going to be a goal of mine. I think this is kind of where I want to go. I think this is it. Wow, my sketches are super messy. So I don't know if that reads. I mean, thumbnails are for the artist. Like, the main thing with your thumbnails is, like, if it makes sense to you, then it's a good thumbnail. If it lets you know what the heck you're trying to do. But I do apologize that, like, I'm trying to stream this whole process from start to finish, and my thumbnails and my sketches are quite chaotic, but I feel good about that. It does take a while to figure out. Like, I'm not surprised that it's been like 45 minutes of me kind of sketching and figuring out, like, what the heck I want to do. So the painting thumbnail that I'm going to go with is this guy. Let me check my camera preview so that I can actually see. But yeah, it's going to be this guy here. Let me show it this way, see if that helps out. This way? Which way is the camera? Oh. There we go. Okay, so this guy here. And you can see the creature is going to be down here. There's going to be the eyeball here. And the viscera, a little deer guy, is going to be here in the middle. He's a little off to the side in the thumbnail, but I've added, like, kind of some little sketch notes to myself. Little arrows are really hard to see from the camera, but I can see them. That remind me, like, hey, have them in the middle. And I have this down here too as a note for, oh my gosh, I never took away the starting soon. Ah! I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. Okay, well now it's gonna be a lot easier to see what's going on because I took off the startings. Okay, I'll walk through what I drew now that you can actually see a little bit more. And again, these are just really, really, really rough sketches to help me figure out how I want to lay out my canvas. Can you tell that I'm new to streaming? But yeah, we're gonna have our little deer guy. He's our main character, he's our star. He's going to be the main focal point, so he's going to be kind of towards the middle. And you can see here, so like here is more or less the canvas. Just kind of draw the rectangle so you can see it. And we're going to have this big frog monster thing coming up with his little arms. It's going to look really, really weird and scrungly. And I'm going to have little bits of empty space in here because I just like doing that. I don't like something taking up the whole bottom of the canvas. I think that's a waste. I always like having shapes kind of add some interesting little places to catch eyes. So I will give him some shape. He will be coming up. He has his big eye, he has his big mouth and teeth. And coming up from jumping on his eye, and there will be blood, and I'll probably do some neat things with nail polish to make that pop and make it a little bit 3D and very shiny. Is our little deer guy, who I want to have a little bit big enough to where I can actually have fun with painting his face. So probably going to try to have the face be like more or less this size, if not a little bit bigger, because I would love the eye to be like this size on the deer. And maybe that just means that the deer ends up being like all eye, you know, like maybe his eye is this big. But one way or another, this is kind of like my goal size for the eye of the deer. And so I will need the monster's eyes to be bigger than that, which is fine because I love painting eyes. So Sorry, I'm just so... I can't believe I had the starting soon thing up for like 40 minutes after I started. No. Oh well, it's okay. And then I'm gonna have the spiraling catacombs. Catacombs. They're not catacombs. I have Mask of the Red Death still stuck in my head. The spiraling basin. I have kind of illustrated here a little bit. That's spiraling down like this into where the monster is. Gonna have these be ledges that are going against the action of the deer. So the deer is here. So these are our lines of action, right? Deer, up and out, basin, down and menacing, monster, up and coming towards the camera somewhat, deer, up and out, right? But like front half with the head coming towards the viewer, back half with the leggies receding into the background, and a very, very sharp twisted spine. And then monsters that are lined up along the edges are all going to be kind of like semi-top down, so that you see a little bit of what they're doing, a little bit of their bodies. Right? What's going on there? So they'll have leggies, they'll have a tail, and they'll be good to go. They'll have mouths with the teeth. Wow. They won't look like that, but just kind of like seeing how, what I mean by top down is that like you'll be able to see some of the back, the spine, and like some of the back leg and tail portion of these creatures, however I end up making them look. I don't want them to all look like the same thing. It'd be kind of neat if there's like a little bit of a hint of a biome in this, and there's just like creatures that are just kind of like of different sorts and sizes, right? And then maybe as I go, like I'll end up adding some more little guys. You follow all of that? No? Great. But yeah, here are some of my initial sketches. Here's my deer going, ah! I accidentally gave him little fangs, and I don't hate it. This is also why I like sketching with pen, because there's a lot of like accidental lines that'll happen. I'll sometimes be like, oh, accident? Not an accident. Actually what I want to do. It also feels easier to kind of figure out shading with ballpoint pens too. So, like here, he accidentally has some fangs. Why not give the deer fangs? He's too small for them to do much of anything, but might as well just give him something. And then for the antlers, I don't know what I want to do for the antlers. I'm starting to debate if I want to give him antlers. I was mostly thinking about them just because I do want him to read as deer-like. I think I'm going to give him little tiny symmetrical ones, if I do give him any. We'll kind of debate on what I want those little teeny tiny antlers to look like. Something to this shape, maybe. Also, this lo-fi said it was going to have Ghibli music, and it really isn't. And I'm a little upset that it doesn't. So I'm gonna try again if I can find that. I don't think any of them will, unless I do like a Ghibli jazz, but So yeah, here's my chaotic thought process when it comes to planning out paintings. It's kind of always been this chaotic. I don't think I've ever had like a clean thought process for this stuff. Give myself a little stretch and drink some water. And then something I really want to figure out too is what I want my color palette to be for this painting. And I'm actually not really sure. Like, I don't know how colorful I want it to be. I feel like I kind of want it to be super colorful. There's a term that I've seen for like called eye strain, and I don't think I'll go full like eye strain with my color palette because I don't use a lot of neons or anything like that. But I really like the feeling of eye strain color palettes. Not the eye strain part, but just the kind of chaotic color part, and especially the exaggerations of colors and the replacement of colors that will happen sometimes. But the best ones always have like some kind of palette plotted out, and I just don't. I'm not sure what I want that palette to be yet. And the reason why I'm thinking about this so far is I'm thinking about like the underpainting, right? One, I think I want to do my underpainting with watercolors. For no reason other than I haven't done that before and I just kind of want to try. And then two, I think that will let me have more ability to play with brighter colors. Because I don't want, the last thing that I want is for this piece to read as muddy in the colors. And I think that might happen if I'm not careful with how I do my color placement. So there's probably going to be a lot of times that when I start painting, I'm going to do a lot of like color blocking as opposed to just like rendering, blending, that kind of a thing. So like, let's say this is my little deer, right? And in my mind, something I want to do, I mean, like definitely with the eyes, I can do that. But do you see how like, okay, this eye has, sure, these like little phalange lids, right? Is have these be like blocks of color and then like have the shading be kind of blocks of color too, which is something very different from what I usually do. I'm usually very render and blend heavy when it comes to how I paint, or very much more like impressionistic of like, oh, okay, well here's shadow, but it's like these blobs of color. But I'm usually not structured, so kind of doing like a very pseudo, almost like cell shading kind of look to it, I think. And then maybe just like letting myself kind of go ham on being inspired by oil slicks and just kind of like letting similar colors kind of blend in and out and having little swirls of colors come in and out of things. The main thing is just I have to be careful of like, if I want there to be tons of different colors, like here you can kind of see like me blotting out some color placement areas, right? Is like that I don't lose my shapes of the actual things that I'm trying to illustrate in this. So it'll be a cool thing to try. I'll give it a shot, and then if all else fails, I'll just kind of go back to what I know as opposed to trying something new. But I really want to try something new with this and make it be super fun as a result. And yeah, like I really like the idea of trying to do little very specific shapes of color without losing the shapes of my characters or the background or the lines of action that they have and the sense of dynamicism within the piece. Before I start undercoloring, and while I'm just kind of mulling over what I want to do with that, I'm just playing around with sketching a little bit because I haven't quite settled on what I want my little guy to look like yet. Any of my little guys. And so playing with how far do I want to take the weird anatomy of these creatures. He's definitely not earthly creatures. Like here, you know, his eyes are starting to like basically be floating on his skull because they're so big, as opposed to actually like kind of being seated in his skull. I'm like, I kind of like that. Kind of like that. I'm thinking too of like how I want all these little hands to look for like the monster creature. Like I don't want them to look too human, right? But like how do you make something that still reads as like hands without losing how it looks too much or getting too restricted into like what it is? So maybe something like that. I also don't know if I want him to have wrists. Like I think I just want it to be like one solid piece. It's just this like mass, as opposed to something with like a wrist to it. Yeah, I kind of like the feel of this more. Like there's still like a little bit of a suggestion of a wrist here, right? But it feels almost more like just a bend of like a plant here. And reads less like there's bones and reads more like just kind of this flopping thing, which I like more. Whereas like this reads more like there's bones. And sometimes you don't want bones. Play around. If I go with this as kind of the model for the little fingies that my big frog guy has, I can really play around with like how big those little limbs are and like how big the fingers are, and just really make them different between each one, which I think is like just close enough to hands to read as hands, especially if I make the majority of them kind of this more hand shape and like expected size of fingers, right? To where it's not really uncanny because it definitely doesn't look like hands, but like where it can read as hands and just kind of be like a little bit more disturbing because there's like this unconscious thought of just hands without bones flipping around and like chasing after you. I feel like this is why I'm a hand streamer. I talk a lot more confidently with my hands than I do with my face. And I hope my AC isn't too loud. My AC is definitely closer to my desk here. But yeah, I think this is a good place to work from. And just so that there's like something to see, let me organize the desk a little bit to where like you can see some of these sketches while I figure out some undercolors. No, I could also just do random undercolors too. Sometimes that helps me just kind of think about how I want something to look. But again, I don't want my stuff to get muddy, so that's the only issue, right? Is that it could get muddy. I'm not gonna adjust the camera to see the whole canvas this time, because I'm gonna be going just like chunks of color at a time. So there's not gonna be like a whole ton to see. Wonder, okay, if I do it like this, does that give stuff to look at? Does that add visual interest to the stream? Sign that. Awesome. And that way people can know like what they're in for if they want to follow this painting. Ooh, screaming deer, dude. You could also just do an underpainting of like one color, but I don't know if there's like one color that I want. I do like my watercolor set a lot. I'm trying to think of like what I would want to do. I think overall, even though some of the creatures I think will probably end up being somewhat cool toned, I want to stick more towards warm tones for the underpainting. And the reason why I'm thinking about sticking more to warm tones for the underpainting is one, it'll be a little bit lighter, so it's a little easier to cover, but two, I think it would be a nice contrast to what I think is going to be like a lot of blue and green when I start painting this. Really a lot of blue and green and purple. So yeah, watercolor chunks come out like this. I haven't used them to the point where they like stay stuck in their trays, except for like yellow. There's one yellow right here. I think one of the blues is also, yeah, this blue doesn't come out anymore. But some of the ones I've used a lot less. Like, you can tell immediately because I can still pop them out like this. I'm not going to do the whole painting in watercolors, just the underpainting, and see if it's a disaster when I lay down acrylics on it. I don't think it will be though. I think it'll be fine. And I was thinking like, oh, do I want to sketch and then do the watercolors? But then I'm really worried again about that like muddying, right? So I think I want to do the underpainting, and then I will, when I feel satisfied about the colors I have laid down on the underpainting, then I'm going to spend the rest of the stream sketching out the creatures. And I think that will actually take me the full 4 hours to do, because I'm not very fast at painting, or drafting. But if it doesn't, like, I will be very happy that I hit my goals. So I'm hoping that before the 4 hours, because I do want to cut myself off at 9, because I have a busy day tomorrow. And I'll be streaming again tomorrow too, so it's okay. Is that I really want to hit those goals that I have listed up by the stream of getting the underpainting colors and then sketching, so that way everything is nice and dry for me, because I will probably use pencil first and then go in with pen, like just do some blocking with pencil and then go in with pen to actually do my sketching. And then everything will be nice and dry for me tomorrow to start working in some colors. So yeah, let's see what I want to use. Let's see, I think I want to use up my warm colors. I know, my tray is such a mess. I should be more careful with it. I'm not. these yellows. I don't remember which one I like. I think I want to save using bright yellow for when I'm starting to render. So I'm not going to use it in the underpainting. And instead just use this ochre yellow, which you can see is, I'm pretty sure this color here, if I remember. I haven't used this in a while. Okay. Secrets or anything. It's just like notes about stuff I have to do at work. Okay. What do you need to? Okay. We'll do that, and then we'll flip the canvas around. We'll get there. I might need to grab a towel, I think, and like maybe clean this tray up a little bit. I'm gonna have such a nice sound. I love the sound of my watercolors. They're really nice ones, and I should be using them more. We'll hopefully be doing a lot more art this year with the stream. Okay, let me go grab some water and a paper towel. Be right back. I love you too, Prince. I think Prince meowed too quiet for anybody to hear. This is definitely one of her prime sleeping times. And when I'm doing art, she's not as interested in jumping up on whatever I'm doing. Unless it's something 3D or sculptural. And she's like, ooh, what's that? Let's see. So many brushes. It's so inefficient, but I think I will. Oops. Oops. It's super inefficient, but I think I want to use my fan brush. I know, it's already dirty. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not great at taking care of my brushes. I'm not awful, but look, it's still soft. I mean, that's something, right? No, I use brushes a lot for like detail kind of work on things, so they get dirty. But I try to keep them from getting hard unless I want them to be hard for specific detailing. See, I'm just gonna clean up this little tray here because it's got some blue in it, and I don't want it to mess up the warm colors I want to use. So, clean it. So we have a nice blue blank space to work on. There you go. Let's see if I remember anything about watercolors. I'd be surprised if it's a no. It's also, like, I know watercolors on, like, a primed canvas isn't necessarily super effective. But this is a store-bought canvas, and I always find that the priming on store-bought canvases is pretty flimsy. But I think that's really good for the kind of underpaintings that I like doing, which are these like very, very colorful abstract underpaintings. I don't do ones that are necessarily helpful to me in any way, other than just being colorful and keeping my attention while I'm painting. They also help me kind of like plot out things as well. So like once I start sketching, it kind of helps me visualize like a canvas, especially if it's a larger canvas, of like, oh, I know that I want this to be kind of like hitting where that red ends and things like that. Okay, I love you, fan brush, but this is so inefficient. I need to use a different brush. Get some of the cadmium in there too. And so because the primer on this isn't super thick, it makes it a little bit easier for the canvas to kind of absorb the water going in and going on with the watercolors. And I don't know if anyone is around from back when I used to paint on Twitch like 7 years ago. But you may remember that I used to do underpaintings in this very like watery, thin, colorful way. And that's why I wondered, like, why don't I just try using watercolors? Because if I'm gonna thin out my acrylics to being like watercolors anyways, and ultimately I use my underpainting as kind of like not even something that shows up at any point and gets completely covered eventually, I think it hurts. It may be more effective than using up a bunch of acrylic to get the same effect. It's probably going to be easier to blend too. It's also a good warm-up. Honestly, it's been so long since art school, I forget the professional purposes of underpaintings. Like, I know they like help to enhance colors, stuff like that kind of stuff, but I just do this stuff for my own happiness, you know? Sometimes you just gotta do stuff for you. Because it's fun. I don't know. No matter what I end up painting, even if it's something bizarre, scary, or cute, or whatever, just like having a moment of really enjoying the canvas as it is. Its simplest form. And it feels like getting to know it. I know I complained a little bit earlier about the priming. I do really like store-bought canvases for just being like a removal of a blocker from painting, because I will block myself for months on painting, even though I really like painting. But I do actually know how to stretch canvas and make my own canvases. I just, one, don't have the materials or the patience right now. I also don't really have the space for it either. It is something that I've thought about wanting to get into again, especially if I can find a makerspace somewhere near me. Is that I would really, really love to do laser cuttings of very specific shapes of canvas, right? Like customized shapes. And very carefully do stretching of very specific shape canvases. I don't know why my mind is so set on deer this year. That's all I sketch in my long notes too, lately. But there is one that I want to do of like a herd of deer, kind of like running through and having like some of the shape of the deer be the edge of the canvas, which would be very annoying to stretch canvas over, but at the same time I want to do it. So I want to figure out a way to do that. And I think the way to do that will be most feasible for me will be trying to do laser cutting. So I'll do that sometime. Hopefully. Again, if I can find a makerspace, because I will not be able to afford a laser cutter for my house at any time, nor would I have the room. But it'd be very, very fun. To play around with one. Other projects I want to do. I want to do origami tea bags too. Let's see when I can make that happen. See, I'm already really liking watercolor for underpainting because, like, I blocked off this section. I'm able to just completely mask it even ever existing as a separate section right away. It's fun. It's fun. Sometimes you just gotta find what's fun. So today's stream definitely goes out to the VOD watchers, which, like, thank you, by the way. I'll set up a VOD channel, hopefully soon, for anybody that wants to catch them but misses catching them in time before Twitch deletes them. But there's like a fair number of people that watch the VODs, and I'm surprised but also very grateful. So yeah, if that's you, thank you so much. I'll try to make it easier for you to do that, and I really appreciate it. To affiliate. This stream not having any viewers will set me back, but at the same time, like, I made a promise to myself that, like, I know I would love to be able to justify streaming as a hobby by being able to monetize it a bit, but I don't want to do anything outside of what I want to do just to be able to monetize. And that's not a dig to anybody that makes a career out of this. Please do whatever you need to do in order to survive and to be able to do the things you love. But for me personally, and just as a goal for this channel, I just want this channel to be a place where I do things I want to do, and that I don't worry about algorithms or, you know, goals or things like that. We are close to qualifying for affiliate, which is cool, but the only thing that I'm missing is just having the average 3 viewers per stream. So, like, I was looking at the amount of viewers, I'm like, aw, it's gonna set it back, but at the same time, like, well, I'm still gonna stream anyways. So if this is a less popular stream, that's fine, because it's my excuse to actually paint, and I need an excuse to paint. Otherwise I just won't do it, and then I'm very sad about not doing it. So I think, I mean, that always was the plan for this channel, is just to be a very chill variety stream. But I think that is something that you can look forward to in the future, is that this channel will be just my outlet for a lot of creative projects that I've had on the back burner. Really, as soon as I can figure out a way to stream them in a way that's somewhat interesting. Geez, there's so much that I've wanted to do. There's research projects I want to do, there's podcasting I want to do, there's all sorts of studying I want to do of different things, and I don't think everything will make for streams. I think some of it just isn't very interesting or kind of like worth the trouble of figuring out, but some things are. I've seen a lot of cool co-working streams that make me think like, oh, I could just set up like a co-working environment. Hopefully I can do that for this stream in the future. Any of the painting streams, kind of set up a more co-working environment. Set up music that I dig a little bit more. This music's very calming, so I'm keeping it on, but I'm like, I feel like this is the lo-fi music that like every come work with me stream ends up having, right? Like I want to find stuff on my own, or even see if friends of mine have music that I could pay them to use. If they have chill stuff. I think I have friends with some chill stuff. I have to look. If you're a friend watching and have chill stuff, let me know. I don't have a lot of funds right now, but I have quite a few things I can barter. Also, depending on like what your rates are for just being allowed to stream music, maybe we can work something out that isn't bartering. So we all gotta eat. This is also giving me a really good feel for the canvas texture. It's also hopefully sealing it up just a tiny bit more. Like that is one downside to using watercolor, is that if I used acrylic to do the underpainting, there would be a layer of acrylic, right? And a layer of acrylic kind of protecting the paints that I put down from getting soaked up too hard, so I don't have to use as much paint to paint. And watercolor is not going to do that. It's not what watercolor does. But I am hoping that once the watercolor is dry, it will make sure that there's no like weird blank spots once I do start painting. And that it helps with the absorption at least a little tiny bit, right? It won't hurt. Right now I'm really just kind of feeling out the texture of the canvas. And seeing like what pressure brushstroke I need to cover it, to take away paint. So that's why I'm doing these really, really long strokes. I'm just kind of using it as an excuse to do one big brush over to where there's no big obvious lines going on. Not that you'll be able to see it soon, but makes me feel like, okay, I'm in a place where this is complete. It's always really soothing to work with warm colors. here's something I did not realize, but I am realizing now. This is very wet. I'm gonna take a 10-minute break. This is usually where I would take a 10-minute break. Anyways, so I'm gonna take a 10-minute break and see if this dries like at all. And if it does, then we can feasibly work on sketching tonight. And if it doesn't, we really won't be able to, because it'll just be a mess. Oops-a-daisy. I thought the watercolors would actually dry a lot faster, but you probably can't tell, but I can tell from how shiny it is that it is extremely wet. So I'm gonna give it 10 minutes. It's in front of the AC, so that'll help out too. And see if maybe it'll dry enough to sketch on. And if not, then tomorrow we're gonna do sketching and hopefully at least some of the preliminary painting. But let's see how it goes. So we'll see if it's gonna end up being a short stream tonight or not. Oops, doodle. For sketching. So for now, I'm gonna go stretch. I'm gonna go pet the cats and enjoy watching paint dry. It's very pretty paint though. And looking at my weird little sketches on the side there. Just a little deer flailing out. it's not too wet, but it's not like it's not picking up when I touch it, but it does feel still like a little damp. And I think I'd rather wait until it's like bone dry for sketching. So maybe short stream today. When I start painting, I tend to get really into it, so it may be a longer stream tomorrow anyways. But yeah, let's do just short stream today. And then tomorrow we'll get into it. We'll do our sketching on the actual canvas of our little guys, our little creatures. I'm sleepy too. We'll do that, and then yeah, so I'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully. I'll see you tomorrow, and hope you have a really good night. And tomorrow I'll be back to continue working on this, to the sketching, and from the sketching, because if I wait for it to be super dry, it'll be ready to start painting with acrylics too, as soon as I'm done with the sketching. So that'll be less of an interruption for sure. All right, thank you so much. Bye everybody.